Hey guys, tonight we dip our toes into the unsettling space where childhood nostalgia meets cold, calculated crime. We're going to peel back the cheerful, candy-colored wrapper of a suburban summer's day to find the darkness coiled just beneath the surface. It's a story that reminds you that the most menacing things are often the ones hiding in plain sight, smiling right at you while a familiar, tinny jingle plays in the background. This is one of those cases that gets under your skin, so you probably shouldn't be listening to this alone. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. When you're done, drop a comment with your city or town and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air in Officer Dave Miller's patrol car is thick and stale, a recycled blend of lukewarm AC and the faint, ever-present scent of dog. It's the smell of his partner, Aries, a 4-year-old Belgian Malinois currently panting rhythmically in the custom-built kennel behind the front seats. It's 3 o'clock on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon in August. The sun beats down on the asphalt of Northgate, a sleepy satellite town that prides itself on its manicured lawns and oppressively low crime rate. For Miller, it's another day of agonizingly routine patrol. He spent the last 5 hours cruising through quiet cul-de-sacs, watching heat shimmer off the hoods of parked minivans and waving at the occasional kid on a bicycle. It's the kind of peaceful duty that sounds great on paper, but grinds away at your sanity one uneventful street at a time. He takes a slow right turn onto a commercial loop, a short C-shaped road lined with dentists' offices, a small accounting firm, and a chiropractor, all closed for the day. It's a dead zone, a place nobody goes unless they have an appointment. And that's when he sees it. Parked halfway down the curb is an ice cream truck. It's a classic model, brilliantly white with cheerful, slightly faded decals of cartoon rockets and smiling popsicles. It looks like a relic from a simpler time, except for the unnerving fact that it's completely alone. There are no kids, no parents, no customers at all. Just a truck, shimmering in the heat, its presence on this empty street feeling jarringly out of place. This is the first thing that pings on Miller's radar, not as a crime, but as a curiosity, a puzzle piece that doesn't fit the picture of his boring afternoon. As he gets closer, a tinny, slightly off-key melody starts to cut through the hum of his engine. It's Pop Goes the Weasel, played on a loop, the sound distorted and grating. It's almost aggressively cheerful. And that's when the real shift happens. It doesn't come from Miller's training or his gut instinct. It comes from behind him. In the back, Aries stops panting. The rhythmic breathing is replaced by a low, guttural whine that Miller has only ever heard a few times, usually right before a high-risk takedown. It's not the excited yip the dog makes when he detects narcotics. This is different, deeper, more primal. Miller glances in the rearview mirror. Aries is on his feet, pressed against the kennel door, his neck fur bristled. His eyes are locked on the ice cream truck, and a deep rumbling growl vibrates through the entire vehicle. It's a level of aggression that is completely out of character for a simple vehicle sniff. He slows the cruiser to a crawl. The canine is now barking, a frantic, furious sound that echoes in the small cabin. He's not just alerting, he's enraged. He claws at the metal divider, the scrape of his nails on steel a frantic counter rhythm to the truck's cheerful, looping melody. This is twist number 1. The seasoned, highly trained police dog is having a full-blown meltdown over a truck full of frozen treats. Miller's hand instinctively goes to his radio, but he hesitates. What does he call in? Investigating a suspicious good humor man because my dog doesn't like his music? He pulls up about 50 feet behind the truck and stops. The driver's side door of the truck opens and a man steps out. He's average in every conceivable way. Medium height, medium build, wearing a clean white polo shirt and khaki pants. No stains, no sweat marks, even in this oppressive heat. He looks back at Miller's cruiser, his expression not of alarm or fear, but of mild, almost bored curiosity. He gives a little non-committal shrug as if to say, "What's all the noise about?" This is the second strange detail. People who are suddenly faced with a police car and a barking dog are supposed to look nervous. This guy looks like he's waiting for a bus. Miller knows he's in a legally gray area. He has a bizarrely aggressive canine dog, a truck parked in a weird spot, and a driver who is unnervingly calm. Is that enough for a stop? It's a classic Terry stop scenario, named after the 1968 Supreme Court case Terry versus Ohio, which allows police to briefly detain an individual based on reasonable suspicion. But his suspicion feels thin, based almost entirely on the dog's inexplicable behavior. Here we hit our first open legal debate, the reliability of a canine alert. While the Supreme Court has affirmed that a certified dog's alert constitutes probable cause, defense attorneys constantly challenge it. They argue that handler cueing, where an officer's own body language and expectations can subconsciously influence the dog, can lead to false alerts. Was Miller somehow telegraphing his own unease to Aries? He doesn't think so. The dog's reaction was too sudden, too violent. It felt pure. He makes a decision. Trust the dog. He flips on his lights, the blue and red flashes looking surreal as they splash across the happy cartoon decals on the truck. He steps out of his car, the wall of heat hitting him instantly. Aries' barking intensifies. Stay in the vehicle, he commands the driver, his voice firm. The man simply leans against the truck, hands in plain sight, and nods. No problem, officer. Miller approaches cautiously, one hand resting on his service weapon. Everything all right, sir? Your truck seems to have my partner a bit worked up. The man, who gives his name of John Smith, offers a placid smile. His license is clean. The truck's registration checks out to a generically named LLC. Summertime treats. Everything is perfect, too perfect. He peers into the driver's cabin. It's pristine. The floor mats are clean. There isn't a single stray napkin, no sticky residue on the dash, no loose change in the console. It's as sterile as a hospital room. An ice cream truck should be a little messy. It's a law of nature. Miller knows he's in a legally gray area. He has a bizarrely aggressive canine dog, a truck parked in a weird spot, and a driver who is unnervingly calm. Is that enough for a stop? Mind I ask you what you're doing parked here? Not exactly a hot spot for customers. Just taking my break, officer. Waiting for the schools to let out. Figured I'd park where it's quiet. The answer is plausible, it's logical, and every instinct in Miller's body screams that it's alive. He looks from the man's calm face to his own patrol car where Aries is still throwing himself against the kennel door. He makes his second decision. Sir, I'm going to ask you to step away from the vehicle. I'm going to run my dog around the exterior. And here comes a final chilling twist of the initial encounter. The driver, John Smith, doesn't protest. He doesn't demand a lawyer. He doesn't even sigh with impatience. He just pushes himself off the truck, takes 2 steps away, and gestures with an open palm. Go right ahead, officer, he says, his voice devoid of any emotion at all.
The driver's casual permission hangs in the thick, humid air. It's a dare, a quiet challenge. Miller gives a curt nod and walks back to his cruiser. The moment he opens the kennel, Aries is a blur of black and tan fur, a coiled spring of controlled fury. He doesn't bound out playfully, he launches himself, landing on the asphalt with a purpose that sends a shiver down Miller's spine. Such, Miller gives a command to seek, his voice tight. The dog doesn't need the encouragement. He's already working, his nose hovering an inch above the ground as he circles the front of the ice cream truck. The tinny music is still playing its maddening loop, a surreal soundtrack to the unfolding tension. Aries ignores the driver, John Smith, who watches the whole procedure with the detached interest of someone observing a gardener trim a hedge. It's unnerving. The dog sweeps past the front wheels, along the driver's side, his movement sharp and methodical. Then, as he reaches the large service window, the one with the colorful menu of frozen treats painted beside it, his behavior changes. He stops. His tail goes rigid. He lifts his nose from the ground and presses it directly against a specific panel on the truck's body, just below the window. And then he gives the final alert. He sits, stone still. It's the passive alert he's trained for, a clear, undeniable signal. The odor is strongest right here. Miller's heart hammers in his chest. He has it. Probable cause gifted to him by a dog who apparently has a personal vendetta against Choco Tacos. "Good boy," Miller murmurs, giving Arias a quick pat before securing him back in the cruiser. The dog is still fixated on the truck, a low whine escaping his lips. Miller turns back to the driver. "All right, Mr. Smith, your dog found something. I'm now going to conduct a search of your vehicle. Please keep your hands where I can see them." The driver's placid smile doesn't flicker. This is the first real twist of the search, his utter lack of concern. He's not just calm, he's almost smug, as if he knows what Miller will and won't find. It's a high-stakes poker game, and the driver isn't bluffing. He's holding a hand Miller can't yet see. Miller opens the side door and steps up into the truck's service area. The cold hits him immediately. The freezers are humming quietly, and the interior is bathed in the sterile glow of a fluorescent light. Just as he noted from the outside, the place is immaculate. The stainless steel counters are polished to a mirror shine. The floor is swept clean. Inside the glass fronts and freezers, rows of ice cream bars, sandwiches, and push pops are arranged with military precision. It's an oddly joyless display, more like a museum exhibit titled "Ice Cream" than an actual place of business. This is the unusual detail that nags at him, the perfection. It feels staged, artificial. He starts with the driver's cab, finding nothing. He moves to the back, running his hands along the walls, tapping the floor panels, checking inside the empty syrup containers. Nothing. He opens the freezers. The cold bites at his skin. He pulls out a box of orange and cream bars. It's just a box of orange and cream bars. Everything is exactly as it should be. For a moment, a sliver of doubt creeps in. Could Arias, for the first time in his decorated career, be wrong? He thinks back to the alert. Arias wasn't sniffing the freezer vents. He was focused on the exterior wall panel right below the service counter. Miller moves back to that spot inside the truck. It's a smooth, seamless piece of stainless steel. No latches, no hinges, no obvious signs of a hidden door. He pushes on it, pulls on it, nothing. He's about to dismiss it as a phantom scent, a lingering odor from a previous cargo, when his eyes catch a strange sequence of scuff marks. They're nearly invisible, but they're there. One small scratch near the main light switch, another faint mark on the temperature dial of the freezer directly below the counter, and the third, a barely perceptible smudge near the handle for the napkin dispenser. It feels like a long shot, but Miller follows the trail. He flips the main light switch off, then on again. He turns the freezer dial, not to a temperature, but to a specific, unmarked notch between 30 and 40 degrees. Finally, he pulls the napkin dispenser handle. Not down, as you would to get a napkin, but straight out towards himself. There's a soft, satisfying thunkin'. A nearly invisible seam appears in the stainless steel wall. Miller pulls, and the section of the wall, about 2 feet wide and 3 feet high, swings inward on a silent, beautifully engineered hinge. The second twist. This is not some crude, bolted-on stash box. This is master-level craftsmanship. A secret compartment so perfectly integrated, it's practically invisible. The air that wafts out of the compartment is different. It's not cold from the freezer or hot from the outside. It's dry, still air. The air of a sealed vault. And inside, Miller sees it. He was expecting kilos of cocaine or bricks of heroin. He was ready for the familiar smell of marijuana, but it's none of those things. The compartment is filled with cash. Stacks and stacks of $100 bills bundled in professional banking straps. There must be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Alongside the money are several small leather-bound ledgers and a set of pristine, brand new driver's licenses from 3 different states, all with the same man's face, but with different names. This is where the case pivots dramatically. Miller is now looking at evidence not just of drug trafficking, but of a sophisticated money laundering operation. This is where a real-world legal process, civil asset forfeiture, would begin. Miller knows that as soon as he logs this cash into evidence, the government will move to seize it, arguing it's the proceeds of a crime. The owner would then have to prove in court that the money was obtained legally to get it back, a notoriously difficult task. He looks from the cash to the man standing outside, who must know he's been caught. But his expression hasn't changed. He's still just watching. Miller realizes the third and most chilling twist. He hasn't just found a drug dealer's stash, he's found a cog in a much larger machine. This truck isn't for selling drugs, it's for moving the profits. It's a rolling, untraceable bank, disguised under a layer of nostalgic Americana. And the question of the canine alert returns, leading to our second open debate. The plain smell doctrine is clear for drugs, but what did Arias smell? Experts still argue about what exactly canines trained to find narcotics are detecting when they alert on large sums of currency. The prevailing theory is that most US currency has trace amounts of cocaine on it from being handled in the drug trade. But was that faint residue enough to trigger such an explosive reaction from Arias? Or is there something else at play? Some trainers and canine behaviorists posit a fringe theory that certain high-drive dogs can sense things beyond the chemical, that they can detect the wrongness of a situation, the subtle cues of deception from a human, or even the scent of adrenaline and fear that an experienced criminal might emit. But this driver, John Smith, seems to have no fear. So what set Arias off? Was it just the money? Or was it the man himself? Miller, standing in the eerie silence of the truck, the tinny music having finally stopped, has no answer. He only has a mountain of cash, a ghost of a driver, and the chilling certainty that his boring Tuesday afternoon is irrevocably over.
With the discovery of the compartment, the atmosphere on the quiet commercial loop transforms. The solitary patrol car is now the anchor of a burgeoning crime scene. Within minutes, the C-shaped road is swarming with official vehicles. Backup officers arrive, followed by detectives in their unmarked sedans. And finally, the forensic unit's bulky white van. The cheerful facade of the ice cream truck now seems grotesque, its smiling cartoon rockets mocking the serious business of evidence collection. Mueller briefs Detective Crumb, a veteran with tired eyes and a perpetually rumpled suit, laying out the bizarre sequence of events. The oddly parked truck, the driver's unnerving calm, and Arias's agitated, almost inexplicable alert. While the forensics team photographs and bags the stacks of cash and the fake IDs, Crumb takes over the interrogation of John Smith. The man sits in the back of a patrol car, the door open, his posture relaxed. He hasn't said a word since Miller read him his Miranda rights. He simply watches the organized chaos with that same placid, unreadable expression. He's a stone wall. Crumb tries every trick in the book, the friendly, "we can help you" approach, the intimidating, "we know everything" bluff, the classic good cop, bad cop routine with a younger detective. Nothing works. John Smith just sits there, a human black hole of information. His fingerprints are run through the system, no matches. His face is put through facial recognition software, again, no matches. He doesn't exist. This is the first major twist in the investigation. The driver isn't just using a fake name, he appears to have no real identity at all. He's a ghost. The only thing they have is his face on 3 different, high-quality forged driver's licenses found in the secret compartment. The detectives are now dealing with a professional, someone meticulously scrubbed from all official records, the kind of person you only see in spy movies. It's a chilling realization that they haven't just arrested a courier, they've captured a purpose-built phantom. Back at the precinct, the investigation into the truck itself begins. This is where the truly unusual detail emerges. The truck, a vintage 1988 Grumman Curbmaster, was purchased at an online auction 6 months prior by the shell company, Summertime Treats LLC. The LLC was registered just 1 day before the purchase using a post office box in a different state as its business address. The money for the truck was paid in full via cashier's check from a bank 3 states away. The trail is a masterclass in misdirection, a spiderweb of dead ends designed to frustrate any inquiry. The investigators are running in circles, hitting one firewall after another. This is where the real-world criminal event comes into focus, the use of shell corporations for criminal activity. This is a classic money laundering technique. By creating a legitimate-looking company, in this case one that deals in a cash-heavy business like ice cream sales, a criminal organization can funnel illicit funds and make them appear as legitimate earnings. The FBI estimates that shell companies are one of the primary tools used by terrorist organizations and transnational crime syndicates to move money and acquire assets anonymously. Our John Smith wasn't just driving a truck, he was driving a mobile front for a sophisticated financial conspiracy. The team decides to tear the truck apart, piece by piece. They assume there must be more compartments, more drugs, more something. They bring it to the county garage, a cavernous space that smells of grease and disinfectant. Under the harsh bay lights, mechanics and detectives swarm over the vehicle. They rip out the freezers, tear up the floorboards, and peel back the interior walls. They find nothing. The secret compartment with the cash appears to be the only modification. But then a junior mechanic, a kid barely out of trade school, notices something odd about the chassis. Certain welds along the main frame are too clean, too new, and some of the bolts holding the body to the frame have tiny, almost invisible markings on them. Not factory markings, but a sequence of hand-etched dots and lines. This is the second twist. It's a code. Following the sequence, the mechanic finds a specific bolt under the rear axle. It's not a bolt at all. It's a release mechanism. When he turns it exactly 720 degrees to the left, a hydraulic hiss echoes through the garage. A section of the truck's main fuel tank, which had been thoroughly inspected and deemed normal, detaches and lowers to the floor. It's not a secret compartment inside the tank. The tank itself is a decoy. It's a hollow shell perfectly weighted to feel full of fuel, containing a small military-grade GPS tracker and the single burn-proof satellite phone. They found the Phantom's lifeline. The device is immediately sent to the tech lab, but the victory is short-lived. The sat phone has been remotely wiped clean the moment the decoy tank was detached from its power source, a feature designed for exactly this scenario. The GPS history shows only one thing: its current location. The device was a dead man's switch, designed to self-destruct digitally if ever discovered. The organization behind this is not just professional, they're paranoid and prepared for every contingency. This leads to our next open legal debate: the fruit of the poisonous tree, doctrine. Let's imagine for a moment that a judge later rules that Miller's initial stop was invalid, perhaps agreeing with the defense attorney that Eris's alert was unreliable or improperly handled. According to this legal doctrine, any evidence obtained as a result of that illegal action, the poisonous tree, is also inadmissible in court, the fruit. So if the stop was bad, the discovery of the cash would be thrown out. The discovery of the GPS and sat phone, which only happened because of the cash, would also be thrown out. The entire case could collapse on this one single point of law, hinging on the question of whether a dog's agitated barking at an ice cream truck constitutes reasonable suspicion. Experts in courts go back and forth on these nuances all the time. A case can be made or broken by a single debatable action in the first 5 minutes of contact. The investigators are left with a ghost driver who won't talk, a mountain of cash with no clear origin, and the digital ashes of a communication system. They have the what, but are no closer to the who or the why. But in the sterile silence of the evidence room, a detective poring over the fake IDs found with the cash notices the third and final twist of this section. The birth dates on all 3 fake licenses are different, but they all fall on the same day of the week, a Tuesday. And the issuing cities, Phoenix, Denver, and Dallas, form nearly a perfect straight line across the country. It's not random. It's a pattern. It's a message or a map. The ghost in their custody might not be talking, but his creators left a clue. A tiny breadcrumb in a forest of shadows. The investigation isn't dead, it just has a new, cryptic direction. The discovery of the pattern on the fake IDs, the Tuesday birth dates, and the straight-line geography of the cities injects a new energy into the stalled investigation. Detective Crumb pins a large map of the United States to a corkboard in the squad room. He marks Phoenix, Denver, and Dallas with red pins. The line they form is unmistakable, cutting a clean diagonal slash across the heart of the country. It looks like a route. It feels like a route. But a route for what? The team is sitting on a massive pile of confiscated cash, so the obvious theory is that the truck was part of a cash transport network, picking up illicit profits from various points and moving them to a central hub for laundering. This shifts the entire focus of the case. They're no longer just looking for a drug kingpin. They're hunting for a financial mastermind. The investigation pivots from street-level crime to the far more complex and nebulous world of high-level money laundering. Crumb assigns two of his sharpest detectives, a tech-savvy millennial named Chen and the seasoned numbers guy named Rodriguez, to a single task: live and breathe the financial life of Summertime Treats LLC. They are to follow the money, no matter how cold the trail gets. Their first stop is the bank where the cashier's check used to purchase the ice cream truck originated. It's a small, independent bank in a strip mall in suburban Ohio. The branch manager is cooperative but unhelpful. The check was purchased with cash by a man who provided a valid-looking but ultimately fake driver's license. The name on that ID matches none of the names on the licenses found in the truck. It's another dead end, another ghost. This is the first ironic twist of this section. In their quest to understand how the criminals hide their money, the detectives find themselves spending taxpayer money to fly across the country, chasing shadows and burning through their own budget. Frustrated, Chen and Rodriguez turn their attention to the LLC itself. This is where the real-world criminal process of beneficial ownership comes into play. In 2021, the U.S. enacted the Corporate Transparency Act, a law designed specifically to combat the use of anonymous shell companies. It requires many companies to report information about their beneficial owners, the actual people who own or control them, to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. It's a direct response to criminals using layers of corporate secrecy to hide their identities. Crumb's team files an emergency request with FinCEN, hoping this new law will give them the breakthrough they need. But the criminals were one step ahead. Summertime Treats LLC was structured in a way that cleverly exploited loopholes in the new law. The registered agent was a professional service that exists solely to file paperwork for thousands of companies. The ownership was layered through a series of other LLCs, each one registered in a different state with weak reporting requirements, creating a labyrinthine chain of ownership that is technically legal but functionally impossible to untangle. This is the unusual detail that boggles the detectives' minds, the sheer painstaking administrative effort. The criminals hadn't just broken the law, they had studied it, understood its weaknesses, and engineered a corporate structure that was a work of art and legal obstruction. It was white-collar crime with the meticulous planning of a military operation. The investigation is on the brink of stalling again when Chen has a radical idea. He's been staring at the red line on the map connecting Phoenix, Denver, and Dallas. He says to Crumb, "We're thinking of this as a route for the truck, but what if it's not? What if the truck is just one piece? What if the route is the business?" He proposes a new theory. The ice cream truck was a clean vehicle designed to move money from point A to point B, but the money had to get to point A first. He suspects there's a parallel network of dirty vehicles, cars and vans actively involved in street-level crime that feed cash into collection points in these hub cities. The ice cream truck's job was simply to ferry the consolidated, cool-down cash along the main artery. To test this theory, they need a new angle. Rodriguez, the numbers guy, goes back to the cash itself. It was all $100 bills bundled in straps from 5 major banks. He gets warrants for the serial numbers. Running hundreds of thousands of serial numbers is a needle in the haystack task, but they get a hit, and it's a big one. This is the second twist. A block of 100 bills from their confiscated cash matches the serial numbers of money used in the controlled drug buy conducted by the DEA in Phoenix 6 weeks ago. Suddenly, they have a connection. The DEA was running a long-term investigation into a mid-level heroin distribution ring operating out of a string of cheap motels in Phoenix. The case had been slow-moving, with low-level dealers who couldn't or wouldn't give up their suppliers. Now, Crumb's team has a direct link between that street-level drug money and their ghost in the ice cream truck. Chen's theory was right. The truck is a transporter, a financial pipeline connecting the gritty reality of drug sales to a much cleaner, more abstract corporate structure. This is where our next legal debate comes into play, the willful blindness doctrine. In financial crime cases, prosecutors don't often have to prove that a person knew their actions were part of an illegal scheme. They only have to prove that they deliberately avoided finding out. This is for the players in the middle, like a bank manager who approves a suspicious transaction without asking questions, or an accountant who prepares the books for a company they suspect is a front. Now Crumb's team starts to look at the whole operation through this lens. The driver, John Smith, may not know the whole picture, but his meticulously incurious behavior could be seen as a textbook case of willful blindness. The same could be argued for the bank that issued the cashier's check and the service that registered the LLC. They are all cogs in a machine, perhaps intentionally keeping themselves ignorant of the machine's ultimate purpose to maintain plausible deniability. Armed with this new DEA connection, Crumb's team pools its resources with the feds. They start cross-referencing surveillance logs, informant tips, and traffic camera data from Phoenix, looking for any link, however tenuous, to Ice Cream Trucks or Summertime Treats LLC. And they find it. The final crucial twist of this section. An informant in the Phoenix drug ring had mentioned his supplier talking about a new system for getting paid. He called it the cold route. He said the money goes for a ride to get clean. The feds had dismissed it as street slang, but Crumb and his team know exactly what it means. It's not just a cute nickname, it's the operational name for the entire money laundering network, and now they know its starting point. They're no longer just following a line on a map, they're on the trail of the cold route itself.
With the cold route theory gaining traction, the Joint Task Force of local detectives and DEA agents shifts its strategy from forensic accounting to old-fashioned surveillance. They have the starting point, Phoenix, and a suspected endpoint. The line on the map doesn't just pass through Dallas, it seems to point directly at a sprawling industrial zone on the city's eastern outskirts. They believe this is where the money and possibly the truck was headed. The ghost driver, still silent in his cell, becomes a secondary asset. The real prize is the infrastructure behind him. The DEA pulls all available surveillance assets in Phoenix, focusing on the heroin ring they had already been investigating. They're not looking for drug deals anymore. They're looking for the handoff. They're looking for the moment the dirty street money gets passed to the next link in the chain. For weeks, the operation is a frustrating grind. They watch low-level dealers make their rounds, but the money seems to vanish into thin air. The dealers enter apartments and leave empty-handed. They meet contacts in crowded parks and no cash is visibly exchanged. The organization is disciplined, using sophisticated dead drops and coded signals to move the funds without attracting attention. The break comes from an unexpected source, a traffic violation. A beat cop in a Phoenix suburb pulls over a battered-looking plumbing van for a broken taillight. The driver is twitchy, overly nervous for a simple traffic stop. The officer, a rookie fresh out of the academy, decides to call for a canine unit, playing a hunch. The dog alerts on the van. Inside, behind a false panel of PVC pipes and fittings, they don't find drugs. They find cash. About $50,000, vacuum-sealed and smelling faintly of laundry detergent, a common tactic to mask the scent of narcotics from dogs. This is the first twist, the discovery of a feeder vehicle. It's a dirty van, just as Chen theorized. Its mundane appearance as a tradesman's vehicle, the perfect cover for collecting cash from street dealers. The driver, unlike the ghost in the ice cream truck, is not a professional. He's a low-level mule who folds under questioning in less than an hour. He admits to making pickups and dropping the cash at a designated location, a self-storage facility on the edge of town. He says he never meets anyone. He's given a code to a specific unit. He goes in, leaves the cash in a marked bin, and walks away. He's paid via an anonymous deposit into a cryptocurrency account. The task force swarms the self-storage facility. They get a warrant and set up round-the-clock surveillance on the unit. This is where they encounter a real-world criminal tactic that has become increasingly common, the use of third-party logistics and neutral ground for criminal handoffs. Self-storage units, with their anonymity, 24/7 access, and lack of oversight, have become the modern-day dead drop location for everything from drugs and weapons to illicit cash. For 3 days, they watch and wait. Then they see it. A flatbed tow truck arrives. The driver gets out, enters the storage unit, and emerges a few minutes later. The tow truck then leaves. The surveillance team is confused. Did he pick up the cash? Why a tow truck? They check the GPS tracker they secretly placed on the plumbing van and see it hasn't moved. The next day, a different vehicle arrives, a landscaping truck complete with mowers and leaf blowers. The same thing happens. The driver enters the unit and leaves. On the third day, a carpet cleaning van. This is where the second and truly unusual detail of the operation reveals itself. Crumb and the lead DEA agent get a warrant to enter the storage unit themselves. Inside, they find no cash. All they find is a set of keys hanging on a hook and a single laminated card with a list of GPS coordinates on it. The task force realizes their mistake. The drivers weren't picking up cash, they were picking up vehicles. The storage unit was a clandestine motor pool. The plumbing van was just one of several dirty collection vehicles, each disguised as a different trade. After a van finished its cash collection route, it would be dropped at a secret location, and the driver would be instructed to take a clean car home. Later, a different driver, a transporter, would pick up the dirty van and move it to the next stage of the operation. The investigation is now focused on one thing: a nondescript warehouse in the industrial park outside Dallas, the location pinpointed by the final set of GPS coordinates on the laminated card. This is the suspected hub, the place where all the threads come together. A full-scale raid is planned. The team expects to find a fortress, a lab for processing drugs, or a vault for storing cash. They breach the warehouse at dawn, a heavily armed SWAT team flowing through the doors. But the scene inside is eerily quiet. There are no drugs, no piles of money, no army of cartel thugs. Instead, the warehouse is a high-tech custom fabrication shop. This is the final, mind-bending twist. The warehouse isn't for storing contraband, it's for building the means to transport it. The space is filled with vehicles in various states of disassembly, a minivan with its entire floor panel removed, a luxury sedan stripped down to its frame, and in the center of the shop, another white ice cream truck, identical to the one Miller stopped, sitting like a patient on an operating table. Mechanics' tools are scattered everywhere. Welding equipment, plasma cutters, and advanced 3D printers are lined up against one wall. They are in the assembly line. This isn't just about hiding things in cars, it's about re-engineering vehicles from the ground up, building secret compartments so seamlessly integrated that they are virtually undetectable by normal law enforcement methods. They find blueprints for compartments in fuel tanks, door panels, and even inside hollowed-out engine blocks. This leads to a fascinating open legal debate surrounding vehicle modification and criminal intent. Is it a crime to be a master craftsman who builds secret compartments? The act itself isn't inherently illegal. Defense attorneys for the mechanics arrested in the raid would argue they were simply skilled fabricators hired for a custom job. They had no knowledge of what the compartments would be used for. The willful blindness doctrine would come into play again. A prosecutor would have to prove that a reasonable person, when asked to build a hidden, electronically activated compartment inside a gas tank, should have known it was for a criminal purpose. Where does skilled labor end and criminal conspiracy begin? It's a blurry line that the justice system constantly has to define. The task force has shut down the factory, the heart of the cold route. They've captured the mechanics and seized the blueprints. They've taken apart the assembly line. But as they sift through the documents in the warehouse office, they realize the person who designed the blueprints, the person who managed the logistics, the person who created the corporate shells, the architect of this entire brilliant operation, is nowhere to be found. They've taken the factory, but the CEO is still out there.
The raid on the Dallas warehouse is a major victory, but it feels incomplete. The task force has decapitated the cold route's physical operations, seizing the tools, the vehicles, and the skilled labor that made the network possible. They have the mechanics, the low-level drivers, and the ghost in the ice cream truck. What they don't have is the mastermind. In the warehouse office, a cramped, dusty room overlooking the fabrication floor, they find shipping manifests, parts invoices, and stacks of forged vehicle titles. It's a mountain of paperwork, but it's all tied to the same web of anonymous LLCs and shell corporations they'd already uncovered. The architect of the operation remained a ghost. The break comes from the one piece of evidence that feels anachronistic in the high-tech workshop: a simple, leather-bound book sitting on the corner of the office desk. It's not a ledger of names or accounts, it's a vehicle log. This is the first
almost disappointingly simple twist. Amidst all the digital misdirection and corporate firewalls, the operation's logistics were tracked with pen and paper. The book details every vehicle that has passed through the warehouse: the make, model, VIN, the type of modification installed, and the date of completion. It's a complete record of their illicit assembly line. Cross-referencing the VINs in the logbook with national databases, the investigators get a hit. One of the vehicles, a luxury SUV modified with a hidden compartment in the drive shaft 6 months ago, was recently involved in a minor fender bender in Chicago. The accident was insignificant, but the police report was filed by a prominent local attorney on behalf of his client. The client's name is Arthur Vance. This is the first time a real name, a name attached to a real person with a credit history and a driver's license, has been linked to one of the cold route vehicles. The team immediately pulls up everything they can on Arthur Vance. He's a mid-level real estate developer in Chicago, specializing in commercial properties. He's successful, but not flashy. He has a clean record, pays his taxes, and contributes to local charities. On the surface, he's the picture of civic respectability. He seems like just another wealthy client who unwittingly bought a secondhand car that had a dork past. It feels like another dead end. But Rodriguez, the numbers guy from Crumb's original team, is meticulous. He doesn't just look at Vance, he looks at the ecosystem around him. He starts digging into Vance's real estate company, Vance Property Group. And this is where he finds the unusual detail, a tiny thread that unravels everything. One of Vance's primary lenders for his development projects is a small boutique investment firm based out of the Cayman Islands. This is a classic red flag for financial investigators. The Cayman Islands are a well-known tax haven with stringent banking secrecy laws, making it a preferred destination for laundering money. This brings us to a complex real-world criminal scheme, using real estate development for money laundering. It's a three-step process. First, the dirty money is moved offshore to a place like the Caymans. Second, that money is loaned back to a developer in the US, like Arthur Vance, through a legitimate-looking investment firm. Third, the developer uses the money to build and sell properties. The profits from the sales are now clean, legitimate income. The developer repays the loan with interest, sending even more clean money back to the offshore entity. It's a perfect self-sustaining washing machine for illicit cash. Arthur Vance isn't just a client of the cold route, he's one of its primary beneficiaries. He's the end user. Armed with this knowledge, the task force gets a warrant for a wiretap on Vance's phone and places him under 24/7 surveillance. They listen for weeks, but Vance is disciplined. He speaks in code or uses vague, non-committal language. He never mentions the warehouse, the trucks, or the money. The case is strong, but it's circumstantial. They can tie him to the money and the car, but they can't definitively prove he's the one pulling the strings. This is where our next legal debate comes in: the concept of a kingpin statute, formerly known as the Continuing Criminal Enterprise Statute. To convict someone under CCE, the government must prove they organized, supervised, or managed a conspiracy involving at least 5 other people, and that they derived substantial income from it. It's a powerful tool designed to take down the leaders of criminal organizations, not just the foot soldiers. The prosecution believes Vance is the kingpin, but proving he supervised 5 other people when he never communicates with them directly is a massive legal hurdle. His entire operation is built on layers of separation and plausible deniability. Is the architect of a system the supervisor of people he's never met? Courts have wrestled with this question, with some requiring direct proof of command and others allowing for a more indirect organizational role to satisfy the statute. The team needs a smoking gun, something that directly links Vance to the operational side of the network. They need to connect the clean, respectable real estate developer to the gritty hands-on work of the fabrication shop in Dallas. The final twist comes from the most mundane place imaginable: an expense report.
While surveilling Vance, they watch him have a business lunch with a city zoning commissioner. It's all perfectly normal. After the lunch, Vance gets in his car and, thinking he's alone, makes a call. But the wiretap is active. On the call, Vance isn't speaking to a conspirator. He's talking to his accountant. He's dictating his expenses for the month to be filed with his company. He lists his lunch, his dry cleaning, and then he says it. And a plane ticket, round trip to Dallas from 3 weeks ago, business development. And about $400 for, call it, specialty equipment leasing. The investigators freeze. They check the dates. The trip to Dallas was 2 days before the raid on the warehouse. He was there. He was on site, overseeing his operation. And specialty equipment leasing was almost certainly the cash used to pay the mechanics. In a moment of sheer arrogant carelessness, Arthur Vance, the meticulous ghost-like mastermind, had tried to get a tax write-off for his criminal enterprise. He logged his visit to the illegal fabrication shop as a legitimate business expense. It's the smoking gun they needed, a moment of profound hubris that connects the pinstripe suit to the grease-stained floor of the warehouse. The kingpin has been hiding in plain sight all along, and his own meticulous bookkeeping is what will bring him down.
Arthur Vance's arrest sends a shockwave through Chicago's business and political circles. The man known for his blandly successful real estate projects and quiet philanthropy is now the face of a sprawling, sophisticated criminal empire. The media paints a picture of a modern-day Professor Moriarty, a brilliant architect of crime, hiding behind the veneer of utter normalcy. The subsequent trial is a media circus, a complex dissection of corporate law, forensic accounting, and criminal conspiracy. The prosecution lays out the entire cold route network, piece by piece. They start with Officer Miller and his canine partner Eris on that sweltering August afternoon. They present the ice cream truck, the meticulously hidden compartment, and the ghost-like driver who started it all. They connect the confiscated cash to the DEA's drug bust in Phoenix. They present the dirty plumbing van, the clandestine motor pool at the self-storage facility, and the raid on the Dallas fabrication shop. Finally, they tie it all to Vance, using his own offshore accounts, the modified SUV registered in his name, and the damning evidence from his expense report, the trip to Dallas he tried to write off on his taxes. Vance's defense team is formidable. They argue he is a victim, a legitimate businessman who was manipulated by shadowy figures. They claim the SUV was purchased used and he had no knowledge of its modifications. They paint his financial dealings as standard, aggressive offshore investment strategies, not money laundering. They attempt to sever him from every link in the chain, portraying him as the ultimate unwitting participant. This is the first ironic twist of the trial. The man who built an empire on the principle of plausible deniability is now using that same principle as his primary legal defense. He's trying to hide behind the very walls he constructed. The trial brings Officer Miller back to the witness stand. Under cross-examination, Vance's lead attorney zeroes in on the very beginning of the case, Eris's alert. The lawyer aggressively questions Miller about his handling of the canine, suggesting that Miller's own suspicion about the out-of-place truck could have been subconsciously cued to the dog, leading to a false alert. This brings the entire case back to the fundamental legal debate that has haunted it from the start: the reliability of canine instinct versus the constitutional protection against unreasonable searches. Could this entire massive criminal empire be unraveled in court because of a debate over a dog's state of mind? This is a very real legal strategy. In the 2013 case Florida v. Harris, the Supreme Court affirmed that a canine dog's alert can provide probable cause, but it also stated that the dog's training and certification records could be used to challenge the dog's reliability. Vance's lawyers are doing exactly that, attempting to poison the roots of the poisonous tree. Ultimately, the prosecution's evidence is too overwhelming. The mechanics from the Dallas warehouse, facing long sentences,
agree to testify against Vance, confirming he visited the shop and gave specific instructions. The ghost driver, John Smith, whose real name is finally discovered to be Leo Dolman, a former intelligence operative who fell off the grid, also makes a deal. He testifies that all of his orders came through encrypted messages originating from a server traced back to Vance's real estate office. The jury convicts Arthur Vance on multiple counts, including racketeering and violation of the continuing criminal enterprise statute. The kingpin is dethroned. But as the legal dust settles, the focus of criminologists and law enforcement theorists returns to the case's strange beginning. This is where the truly unusual detail and the lingering unresolved theory takes center stage. What did Eris actually smell? The official explanation remains that he alerted on the trace amount of narcotics residue on the bundled cash. It's the scientifically sound and legally defensible answer. However, a fringe theory popular amongst some canine handlers and behavioral specialists persists. They argue that the sheer violence of Eris's reaction was disproportionate to a faint, residual odor. These theorists point to the driver, Leo Dolman. He wasn't just calm, he was a void. Years of training had stripped him of the normal human responses to stress. There was no spike in heart rate, no scent of adrenaline, no subtle tells of deception. He was a blank slate. The theory posits that what Eris detected was not the presence of a scent, but the absence of one. He was faced with a human who didn't smell right, who didn't emit the normal cocktail of human pheromones and stress chemicals that dogs are exquisitely attuned to. To the dog, this perfectly calm man in a high-stress situation was a profound and disturbing anomaly, a glitch in the natural order of things. This unnatural calmness theory is not something you can prove in court, but it provides a compelling, almost supernatural explanation for the dog's extreme reaction. The final twist is a quiet one, discovered months after the trial. While liquidating Vance's seized assets, investigators discover he had been a major, anonymous donor to the city's police department. Specifically, his donations were earmarked for the canine unit. The money had been used to purchase new training equipment and even to help fund the initial certification of 2 new dogs. In a moment of supreme irony, Arthur Vance, the criminal mastermind, had helped pay for the very program that would ultimately lead to his downfall. The architect of the cold route had inadvertently funded the instinct of the one creature who couldn't be fooled by his intricate web of lies. A dog who didn't trust the cheerful music of the ice cream truck and the unnerving calm of the man behind the wheel. The circle closes, not with a bang, but with the quiet, satisfying click of cosmic justice. As the echoes of Arthur Vance's elaborate criminal empire fade, we're left with the quiet hum of the ordinary world he tried so hard to manipulate. The case serves as a stark reminder that the most intricate conspiracies can be unraveled by the simplest of things: a misplaced decimal point, a moment of hubris, or the unexplainable instinct of an animal. It's a testament to the idea that no matter how sophisticated the scheme, there's often a thread, however small, that can pull the entire tapestry apart. The story of the cold route is now a file in an evidence locker, a case study in police academies, a quiet legend whispered among canine handlers. And it all began on a hot afternoon, with the sound we all know, the tinny, cheerful jingle of an ice cream truck, a sound that for one officer and his loyal partner became the siren song of a deep and hidden darkness. Thank you for joining me on this journey tonight. The world is full of these intricate, fascinating cases, and I look forward to sharing more of them with you. Your presence here, lending me your time and your thoughts, is what makes this community special. If you enjoyed our time together, a like is always appreciated, and sharing the story with someone who might also find it compelling helps more than you know. Until we meet again, I hope your nights are peaceful and your own instincts are sharp.